A friend of mine named Sam told me this story back when we were in high school. This happened to her sometime in 2017, and this was around the time when she was in her senior year of high school. She was living near an area where it wasn't really the best, but it definitely wasn't the worst. There were times where sirens would be heard a couple times a week, but with where Sam is, nothing terrible or scary has happened to her, but after this story, it definitely showed otherwise. Now, this was just after the year after the clown epidemic in 2016. So, Sam was pretty much just was working on some homework as she was home alone. She had a younger sister who apparently was 14, but she had gone to a sleepover at a friend's house. Her parents both worked a night shift, and most of the time Samantha would be alone. Sam was pretty much just doing her homework. She was texting her boyfriend when suddenly she looked up from where she was sitting, which happened to be the computer room. There was this clown who happened to be just standing by where where her window was on the other side of the street she was in. Obviously, she paid no attention, and at first she thought that it could have been one of her friends pranking her, as she did have a couple fair share of people pranking her. She continued with her homework. As she was talking with her boyfriend, she ended up looking over to see that clown, but this time it was on her lawn. It gave her a really unsettling grin and was just basically staring at her like if he acknowledged that she was there. But she, however, is not sure on how to respond because this was definitely one of the creepiest encounters. So she basically was stood frozen, unsure of what this clown was thinking of. She would call the police, but she didn't want to know if this guy was thinking of going in her house or something. He just stared at her, and she ended up calling the police. And just as she did that, the clown walked straight up to her house in the living room window and started knocking on it and saying, "Sam, let me in." In a very ghosty voice, he was saying. That really scared Sam. As Sam rushed upstairs and locked herself in the bathroom, she was on the phone with the 911 operator and prayed to God that this clown would just leave. As she waited, did for what seemed like a while, she ended up hearing sirens in the distance, and that's when the police said that it was safe to come out. She comes out of the bathroom, and the police looked around the area, but they couldn't find the clown. Of course, they told Sam that they would patrol the area, and that was all they could really do, as there was nothing really much they can do since the clown was gone. Now, nothing like that has ever happened since, but of course, Sam just wants to know who was that guy dressed up in a clown costume? What did he want? And what would he have done if he had success on getting in the house? Now, about a long time ago, maybe sometime in 2008, this happened to one of my friends. My friend at the time of this story, his name was Ryan, and Ryan liked going to carnivals and stuff. There were fun fairs and carnivals that he used to go to when he was living in an area with his dad. Now, his parents were separated, so most of the summertime and weekends he would spend with his dad. His dad took Ryan and his brother on a little trip up to a fun fair that was about maybe 10 minutes away from where his dad lived. Now, while Ryan and his brother were having a great time, there were a lot of people, including some people in clowns. They were all entertaining and very silly. However, for some reason, Ryan always had the phobia of clowns. He wasn't so sure as to why exactly that was the case, but he was just as scared of clowns for a long time. However, this was definitely one encounter that he wished had not had happened. Now, there was this one clown that looked really odd, and it looked more scary looking than funny. Ryan didn't know what it was, but something about that clown was just off. Now, it wasn't until the night after the fair when Ryan and his brother were home and Ryan was up playing video games. His dad has already said that he could stay up until 11 or 12 since it was during the summer and there was no school during the summer holiday. As Ryan was playing video games, he looked up and looked across the street, seeing the clown. He obviously was surprised at first and wasn't so sure as to what this clown really was. But taking a closer look, he realized that it was the exact same clown from the fair. He ended up closing his blinds and telling his dad, but by the time his dad came down and opened up the front door to look around for the clown, he was nowhere in sight. It was strange, so he must have got away when he knew that Ryan saw him. So that was actually one of the creepiest encounters. But however, it wasn't until maybe a few nights later when Ryan was pretty much just watching TV when he looked up and he could see the clown was not far from his house. It was just on the sidewalk near his house and stared at him. It was the exact same clown that was looking at him funny at the fun fair. Ryan once again tells his dad that there was someone out there, and his dad opens up the door and starts yelling. By the time he opened the door, the clown was already ran out of sight, and that's when his dad had a feeling that Ryan was maybe just crying wolf when Ryan said he really saw the clown. Now, Ryan was trained a bit to do hunting, so this was definitely something that he had learned how to do. Now, fast forward to about a week later. Ryan's dad was sleeping when Ryan was up watching a movie when he ended up looking over to see that the clown had walked across the street to his front yard. Of course, he was staring at him directly, and then he went to the front door and started knocking on it. Ryan knew he couldn't answer because it was the exact same clown, and whatever he wanted definitely was creepy. Now, Ryan obviously wasn't so sure if he should go up and get his dad or not, so he ended up looking through the peephole and seeing that clown just staring at the door. He was obviously not a pleasant looking clown, and as he was waiting for a while. Now, Ryan obviously made sure the door was locked so the clown could not get in, and by the time his dad came down here, he obviously looked to see that through the peephole there was the clown. "I'm calling the police, and I'm armed. Get out of here." That's what Ryan's father said, and this clown obviously took off by the time Ryan's father opened the door with his gun in hand. Of course, the clown escaped, but of course, that's when Ryan tells him that this clown was stalking him for a while. The police were called, but there was not really much they can do as there wasn't really much evidence as to if that clown really was stalking him, but there was not really much they can really do. As of this day, Ryan still is scared of clowns, but even then, during this day, he obviously wondered what could have happened to him if his dad never showed up with the gun that night. So this happened in October of 2018. It was during the time when I was working at a riding stable. This is by far the freakiest thing that's ever happened. It started off with me mucking out stalls, taking horses in and out of pastures, etc. Around 12:30 p.m., my mom came to pick me up from work. Since I work at 8:30 a.m., I work for the morning hours as then I have the rest of the day off. As I got in my van with my mom, she said that she drove past a cornfield a few streets down from the barn. What she saw while she was on her way to get me was a clown. I had asked her what the clown looked like, and she gave me a brief description of the clown. The clown looked like Pennywise from It, the 2017 remake, my mom said. I couldn't get a clear view of it, but it's what I remember what he looked like. As soon as my mom said that, I questioned her on what street she saw the clown at, and when my mom told me that there was a cornfield not far from a trail, I knew what she was talking about, as the trail my mom was talking about used to be a train track many years ago. But ever since the train track was removed, people used it for many purposes like hiking, dog walking, dirt biking, etc. My mom wanted to take the trail as that was by the cornfield, the one where she saw the clown. I was going to tell her it wasn't a good idea, but she insisted we do and take my dog there. My dog at the time was a German Shepherd Golden Retriever mix, so he was about a few months old at the time. He wasn't really big, but he was always so rambunctious that we had to walk him every day. It was a pain to say the least, but fun too. My mom drove down the road she took me to and from work and riding, and it was a quiet road and it never got busy. When my mom got to the cornfield where the trail was, she parked the van and then me and her took the dog out. We couldn't see the clown, but I wondered if he ran off to hide or something. I didn't want to look for the clown, so we started walking down the trails. It was surrounded by trees and leaves, changing color. It was fall, which was my mom's favorite season. As we walked down the trail, we let my dog to go run and do his own thing. After a few feet away from the van, I noticed a dirt bike on the ground. Upon closer look, I looked to see that the bike had been there for a while. Unsure about if the bike was stolen or not, I noticed there was some damage done to it. The tires were slashed and the chain was broken. The seat was also ripped. I looked around to see if anyone was around, but I couldn't see anyone. Thinking whoever left the bike was taking a piss or something, my dog was staring at something in the wilted cornfield. I looked up to my dog and grabbed his leash to be safe, and then I took hold of the leash. I looked up at the wilted cornfield. Winter was approaching within a few weeks, so it was normal to see most of the cornfields wilted in that area. I looked to see the figure in the cornfield that was my dog was looking at. My mom was a couple of feet behind me, so she wasn't far behind. I could see the figure looked like to be a clown from what my mom saw earlier. He looked to be about 6 feet tall, and he was medium built, and he did look like the clown my mom described him to be. I wasn't sure why he was standing in the wilted cornfield, but I had no idea what his plans were. As I stared at the clown figure, it turned around to face me. I could see that the clown had an axe in his right hand, and that's when shit hit the fan. To the right of the clown, I could see at least 3 or 4 men dressed in black about a few feet away from the clown. I was nearly pissing myself, as I wondered why those men were there. If it was private property or something, why couldn't they have just told us to leave? The clown slowly began to walk towards me and my dog. I almost froze in fear at that point. Suddenly, out of nowhere, there was a blood-curdling scream from somewhere in the forest. It sounded like a woman was screaming, and I lost my shit right then and there, so I booked it down the way I came with my dog, not looking back. When I caught up with my mother, I told her to run, and we did so. Despite my mom having breathing problems, we ran all the way back towards our van. As soon as we got to our van, we looked back to see if the clown was behind us, and there was no one following us, but we didn't want to stay to find out. My mom drove down the road until we got to our hometown, looking occasionally for any vehicle that may be suspicious. When we got back, we reported the clown incident to the police, and they went to the location we found the clown at. Shortly after that, we headed down home, but without any hesitation. The next day, my mom got a phone call from the police, and when she picked up from me from work, and what they said will forever send chills down my spine. My mom told me that the clown with 3 or 4 men were luring people down the trail we go to. They had found a few bodies of people, one of them being a 6-year-old girl. I was sickened by what the police found, knowing that those men were waiting for me and possibly my mom and dog in the field. If my dog hadn't alerted me and my mom about that clown and his men, I wouldn't be alive today. Let this be a warning. If you see anyone wearing a clown mask in the forest or cornfield, run away from it. Don't stay with the clown if you want to stay alive.